Hello and welcome to SpookBox, the only podcast where we use an Ethernet cable, so our Zoom calls never drop. Today we're going to be looking at the 2020.
Yeah.
How do you say 2020? The 2020 found footage horror film made by Rob Savage, the director behind 2012 romance Strings. Also directed by Shepard and written by Gemma Hurley. The film is called Host, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. Just a quick note about our sponsors. Today's podcast was sponsored by Zoom, but also Jeremy Bentham's concept of the panopticon.
Wow.
Does that scan?
Scans very well, but just everything to do with this film unsettles me. Like, I feel creeped out as we begin to talk about it.
Sorry, you're dropping out there.
I am not dropping out.
What's that behind you?
Yeah, no. No thanks. We should also mention that we're without Daft this week because he decided to go camping.
Yes. So our podcast... I was going to say menage a trois. I'm not okay with that.
We'll come up with something else, yeah.
The three musketeers of our podcast are down to two.
But much like, a Zoom call, people drop in and out, so...
Yeah? Is that what we're going for with this?
I think that's what we're going for. It was completely intentional.
Like, just as my father used to say to me, like a Zoom call, people... Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about Host, which is nice. Nice modern horror film made by Shudder.
Yeah, now, I know that it's just a horror, a jump scare horror, but to me, like, I feel like that's going to be your take on it, but to me...
It's so much more?
It's so much more.
Okay.
I loved it, and I don't want to
Right.
start thinking about whether it's going to age badly or whatever. I just
Literally
think
one
it
of
was,
my questions.
Yeah, it was the perfect tonic for right now. Like, tonic? I don't know. It made me feel really bad about lockdown. And
It made you feel bad about lockdown?
yeah, because, whether or not we like to pretend that we're all together when we're on house party or on a Zoom, we are alone, which is
All right,
shown
Johnny.
through the physical vulnerability they all have to the demon,
Is it the
because
old,
they're not together.
the old emo poetry book coming out again there, is it?
Excuse me, I'm trying to do a wee bit of theory. Wee bit of theorising, yes, you're together, but not really. Not if a demon decides to enter the Zoom call and kill you in your house.
Excellent. Well, okay, I think that's a very charitable reading of the film to give it that much depth. I am going to go ahead and say that I am not against the film's 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. No, sorry, I'm going to edit that. I am fiercely against its 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
No.
That's ridiculous. That's a better rating than so many things. Well, first of all, it's a better rating than Chappie. And Chappie is an incredible film.
No, because for
The
me,
shite Rotten Tomatoes score.
the score, my personal scoring system is all about, did I look away from this film once? And you get 100% if I didn't look away once. And I didn't look away once during this film. It captivated me the whole time. If I looked away, it was because
I'm not sure how I feel about that rating
I was so
system.
overwhelmed. That's my rating system. Maybe it's because I recently have wondered if I have ADHD. So the highest praise I can give something is that it held my attention for 2 hours.
I didn't look away once.
I did say it's my personal scoring system. I'm not asking you to use it. I'm not suggesting you use it. I'm simply saying if a film holds my attention.
This year's Oscar for I didn't check my phone once goes to...
You laugh, but I think we're getting to that point.
Have I ever told you about that review of Bright that I read? Mm-mm. Do you know the film Bright?
Oh, you made me watch it. I was not a fan.
I'm an orc cop. And
Yeah,
here to
no.
say,
No, just no.
I really like Bright. I like Bright in a weird way. I like Bright sort of for what it represents more than anything else. And I think what it represents is like the dream of Will Smith hasn't died. You know, we can still have PG-13 action films that are about stupid things. But yeah, there was a review of that on Rotten Tomatoes, because obviously the critic score of Bright on Rotten Tomatoes is awful, but the audience score is very, very high. And the one of the great reviews of that was from you know, a housewife who said,
Bright, it's the darkest film I've ever seen, or something.
No.
Because that was my thought. I was like, how dare?
I
so
don't
dark.
know what all the criticisms are about. I'm a busy person.
Yeah.
And I sat down to watch this film.
Yeah.
And I knew all the characters' names.
Yeah.
I knew what was happening. Yeah. And I didn't look at my phone once.
That's
10 out of 10.
That's it. That's me. And maybe that's what Lindsay Ellis would call, you know, the average viewer.
Lindsay Ellis. We need sound effects on the show. Every time Lindsay Ellis gets mentioned, there needs to be...
She has like names for them, like Joanne and Cletus.
Yes.
Maybe we are but Joanne and Cletus.
Hasn't Lindsay stopped using Joanne and Cletus?
I think she has, but I'm wanting to reclaim and repurpose Joanne and Cletus and to say I'm a Joanne.
Oh, sure. It was probably ContraPoints said Joanne and Cletus first, and then Lindsay.
Yeah, but I mean, I basically think that you can say the Joanne and Cletus opinion is the lowest opinion,
but also maybe the truest.
Right. So I'm going to be having a lot of Joanne opinions on hosts.
Who's our Joanne and Cletus? What is the British, Scottish, and Irish Joanne and Cletus?
Oh, you want me to do Scottish or British? Because those are two different things.
Well, not British.
Yeah. Scottish would be like, maybe like Derek and Katie. Wait, do they need to be like, no, sorry.
I think it might be like...
Maybe like Kieran and...
Fergal and Roisin, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I'm going to need to think on this.
Roisin.
I don't really know many people. I don't even...
Right. Anyway, today we're talking
on.
about the host. And I've got a question about the host. My question is this the first film that has succeeded in making technology scary?
Yes. I think so.
Thanks for listening to the podcast.
Nothing else comes to mind. Like...
yeah.
No. Obviously, no. Technology for this paradigm scary? Yes. Why did our door just buzz? Our door just buzzed.
No way.
Should I get it? It's a demon.
Oh, you're going to have to. Yeah,
I'm going to have
yeah.
to get it. Okay.
Yeah, you and I have spoken about this before, this concept of, you know, how do you make technology scary? Because up until this point, when you have a horror film, like with when we talked about One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah.
You know, you have a horror film, you have characters that have got mobile phones. The first thing you need to do is write into the script the reason why the mobile phone doesn't work. Why is there no signal? Why is there no, minutes left on the phone or whatever?
And also...
no battery.
What you need to do is make sure that it's not a prop clearly just bought from the Apple store, like, and has like the large set text and the like default background.
What was that in? What did we see
That was from
recently?
that movie that Trixie and Katie were watching. But anyway, we can go off topic really easily without daft, so let's just like make sure.
This is the joy of podcasting.
I know, but we can go in so many tangents because I think you asked a really good question and I'm trying to remember.
Well, that's my
broader
question. My broader question is this the first film that has succeeded in making modern technology scary? As you so well
what I
put,
want to say is like it requires for me that it's rooted in that kind of believability and specificity. It's not just like, oh, that's clearly a prop.
Yes.
So we can go on to talk about how it's used for the scares, which I really want to, but just the technology itself seemed to be being used in a very real way. Everyone seemed very comfortable with it, and it seemed like theirs, like each character's device seemed like their device, if you see what I mean.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's almost like an extension of,
so there was the girl who was using the filters a lot. There was the one that had the preference for using her phone. Like each character's interaction with their specific device was different, as opposed to a film that was like, yeah, they'll have phones in it now because it's 2020, but they've all got the same iPhone and the same apps on the home screen. Do you
That's
know
amazing.
what I mean?
Yeah. No, I really like that. Just for anybody who is confused, though, we're talking about Host, and just to give you a breakdown of what Host actually is, I'm going to give you a summary of the film now, if that's okay. So, dealing with the troubles of the COVID-19 lockdown.
I actually am going to be so scared to even listen to the summary.
What?
I found this absolutely terrifying.
Who's paying you to say this?
No one's paying me. I think I'm a bit of a technophobe. I don't know.
Jed, Shepard, Rob Savage, Gemma Hurley. Have you been throwing Heather some money out of the back of this? Anyway, dealing with the troubles of the COVID-19 lockdown, American in London Hayley has arranged to meet her friends through Zoom. Like many of us, however, the friend group have grown tired of the usual house party quizzes and assorted online amusements. To add some excitement to their get-together, they arranged to do a seance with the help of medium Seylan, who's up in Scotland, which was quite nice. It was quite nice to have Scottish characters
very
from
cool
him.
to have a Scottish medium.
The group of 6 friends are your average assortment of young professionals and recent graduates. As such, Hayley takes great pains to urge them to take the call seriously. From the off, friends Caroline and Emma are visibly shaken by the concept of contacting the dead, while Radina, Teddy, and Gemma seem set on belittling the medium and having fun above all else. As the call progresses, all manner of typical Zoom interruptions plague the call, with frequent dropouts, animated dragon filters, and animated backdrops becoming the norm. Seemingly more interested in his girlfriend Ginny, Teddy leaves the call, and eventually Gemma grows so bored of the tame seance, she attempts to inject some drama into the call by pretending there is a spirit clutching at her neck. At the peak of this excitement, Seylan's call drops out, and the girls are left grappling with the fallout of Gemma's prank. After a brief bathroom break, which was brilliant, wasn't it? That they built a bathroom break into the film, like...
Fantastic.
Such good pacing.
The pacing was great.
Yeah, really, really good. After a brief bathroom break, it's clear that Hayley is upset with Gemma and possibly the rest of the group. Although some desire to leave the call, it's clear that emotions are running high and grievances must be aired. Before that can happen, however, Hayley is thrown across the room by an unforeseen force. I actually meant to just say unseen. It's very much foreseen. It's very well foreshadowed, actually. Is thrown across the room by an unseen force, and soon all manner of impossible actions begin to take place, exacerbated by the limitations of the Zoom platform. In some genuinely visually impressive sequences, unforeseen forces manage to work their way into the physical realm and one by one kill the friends who disrespected the seance. I added some notes here just so that we can cover up any kind of confusion, just in case you were wondering. Mm-hmm. I have Caroline, smashy face. Mm-hmm. I have Radina and Alan, such great heights. Teddy and Ginny, floaty neck snap and barbecue.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Emma, let the body hit the picnic table.
Good.
And finally, Hayley and Gemma, I have written argle blargle.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because whenever I used to play those flash games online, flash games that have just got a sort of a sting, it's like, find the missing tile. And it makes you pay a lot of like really close attention to whatever it is you're looking at. And then suddenly there's this jump scare thing. I always imagine it going argle blargle. So I very much had that from this film, that the final conclusion, not to spoil it for anybody that maybe hasn't seen it, or anybody who hasn't seen it but is listening to this podcast.
There are jump scares, yes.
It really does end on just a big old
well
jump
done,
scare.
But there's also lingering shots on things that we can't quite understand that are truly terrifying, and I think that's why this film is deep. Like, what I'll refer to first is the...
Oh, what you'll refer to first? What a flex. Jesus.
Well, you did miss something out.
What did I miss?
You missed out the fact that Radina,
yes,
making up a spirit, created a mask. Gemma.
Gemma.
Making up the spirit to sort of liven up the seance, actually sent out like an open invitation to any kind of entity to...
Oh, I didn't miss that out. I'm post-structuralist.
You just don't care about that.
I'm leaving it open for the viewer's interpretation.
Important. I think that's really important.
Nah, you're right. You know, yes, it is made very clear in the film by Seylan that the reason these spirits are killing them is because of Gemma's made-up thing. I tried to include that by including that Gemma did make that up.
Well,
but there was a wee bit of that when we were watching it. I felt like you made more sense of the film than I did.
Okay.
And usually it's the other way around with us. I'm usually, you know, very good at sort of getting the logic of a film together. But as we were watching the film, you turned to me and said, "Isn't it funny?"
Yeah.
You remember now, yeah?
That they're all dying of head injuries.
Yes.
Because that's what Gemma made up had happened to her when she said she was being visited by a dead friend. She said, they were so nice. I burst open my head one time and they helped me. They were called Jack and they hung themselves. And everybody gets hurt by their head being
hit.
So I don't know.
I didn't like that.
Why not?
I don't know. It just seemed a bit like
glib
obvious or something. I don't know. It made sense to me looking through the production list to know that Rob Savage was the guy that made Strings. Had you heard of Strings?
No.
Oh, it was made when I was still in undergrad, and he was 17 when he made it. It's kind of like it was in the same sort of ballpark as like that education film and Education.
Oh, right.
So it's like a going to university film.
Okay.
But like wonderful bit of filmmaking that I think was made on a really, really small budget. So, but all I mean to say is that Savage is not a horror director, if that is a thing, and I think it is a thing because Jed Shepard, that worked on the film as well, is much more involved in the kind of horror scene. Is even trying to make a film with Sam Raimi at the minute. So, you know, I think there are people that are in the horror scene and not in the horror scene, and I felt that the effects in this film were absolutely fantastic. They were fantastic,
and they were set up by the actors themselves during lockdown,
yes, which is so impressive. But at the same time,
people were taught how to do these effects like over Zoom, presumably.
Did it not seem to you a wee bit by the numbers at some points?
In terms of how they all got killed in an order kind of thing.
Yeah, there was something so nice about it. I'm reminded of an amazing scholar. No, I'm reminded of myself from a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Is there ever going to be another Friday the 13th? The movie just kind of comes out of nowhere and just sort of gets the job done, you know.
Yeah, but
without pretension.
This wasn't as confusing to me as Friday the 13th.
No, I suppose not.
And Friday the 13th obviously was so indebted to Halloween.
Yes.
That it's hard to see. I mean, you could say that this is indebted to like Paranormal Activity or that kind of thing.
Yes, a found footage horrors.
Yeah. But it's so novel in its use of zoom.
Yeah, and so that
it
I
really
think
is because the shot that stayed with me. Now, I didn't know Zoom had this feature. I've used it a little bit, much less than you during lockdown, so I count my blessings. But the part in the final act where one of the characters hears noises in her open plan living area and she goes in holding her camera out in front of her, and at first we don't really know what we're looking at because it looks a bit like her face just digitally rendered floating in midair.
Oh, the Harlequin mask floating in the air.
But it's the Harlequin mask, which is just the default face that
the filters would
render on something.
And it was doing face detection of a thing.
And it was
that we
doing
couldn't
face
see.
detection of
cool.
something in this open plan space hanging up in the air that we could just see the digital mask face. And that was, and I didn't know what I was looking at first. I thought, why is her face just up there? What's happening? But it actually realized it was this default digital filter that had picked up on something, and I thought that was fantastic because that kind of like digital mask, I think I've seen that only in contexts where it's used to be like very aesthetic and beautiful, like a cyborg.
So the kind of demonizing of that mask then was
so
sort of an inversion
so
of
the idea of
norms.
being like quasi like cyborg or something, and maybe having this like
you're going down a very interesting route with your reading of this film. I'm really enjoying it. I
don't know, I guess it made the cyborg terrifying to me because the cyborg was being worn by something demonic.
Just let me break that down a wee second. So when you're saying cyborg, the first thing that comes into my head then, because of my uni background, is thinking about Donna Haraway and
I guess what I mean
kind
then
of thing is,
I don't mean cyborg.
But it makes
I'm trying
sense
to say
given
like
what you were saying earlier about how the technology seems to be, the extensions of man type of thing. That
well, what I'm thinking of is like a
McLuhan thing.
A physical representation of what AI could look like. And if we think about cyborgs from films, like if we think about Ex Machina.
No, don't ever think of that film. That film's
and the way
awful.
that the cyborg character looks in that.
Annihilation's quite good, but no,
or
fuck Ex Machina.
Annihilation,
Shit.
just the idea of this kind of like super like neophytic female bald thing. It's like that face hanging in midair because it's actually detecting a demon. Like, so something that I've only seen in the context of like, the future's great. We're all going to have our consciousness downloaded in these beautiful bald cyborg women. Like,
was it not just a clown mask?
To me, it looked like a cyborg lady. I
Did
don't
you have
know.
your glasses on?
I did have my glasses on. No, but I think that the idea of filters and that kind of thing, like certainly the way that I personally use them is to see this kind of like, technological version of myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just so creepy to me to see that in the context of something that's, well, basically what's the demon? It's something completely beyond your control. And it's like, in horror, it's like a predator to us.
That's really interesting. No, that is really, really
it's
cool.
like a predator waiting.
I love where
the
you're going with this.
technology.
I love the ideas that you're bringing into this. This whole like, the science fiction creatures, the machines are going to become demons. That's super, super interesting. But my concern is this.
Go on.
So these are not necessarily horror folk making this film.
Yeah.
And it feels a little bit more, to me, it felt to me like it was missing the kind of meditative quality
that horror has.
That the horror I like has.
Okay.
Now, even something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which scares the bollocks off of me, or Eyes of the Mother, which we keep mentioning on this show, and we will eventually have to rewatch.
I don't know, man. I think it did have a meditative quality because the thing that gets them in such hot water is the sarcasm of Gemma. If she hadn't been so like millennial and sarcastic about it, they wouldn't have invited a demon in.
What I mean is just like
so there are sort of like
space. There's just
oh right, meditative space,
literal.
So because it was all over Zoom. So you've more got a problem with the way it was filmed.
Yeah, I felt like there just wasn't maybe enough sort of scope. It was maybe too tight. People have really like congratulated it for being such a like lean.
It's only an hour or something.
54 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, which like 14 minutes shorter and it wouldn't technically have been a film.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. For me, it was too lean.
Right.
But having said all of that. Again, why are you always right? But you are always right. The first 20 minutes, at least, of the film.
Or just Hayley hanging out in her room. Or just them chatting.
Yeah, there's the whole bit of her. And she seems upset from the beginning of the film.
She seems upset, yeah.
Oh, no, this film is very good, actually, then. Right.
But I think it's
I've got a couple of questions,
it's so
though.
lean, it allows you to put more into it.
And that's what I'm looking for with horror.
Exactly.
So I think I'll need to watch it again, actually, just to sort of fill in those blanks for myself. Well, first of all, to find the blanks and then to start filling them in.
But can I just say one more thing?
There.
I think it's like...
You can say all the things, but I'm going to ask you questions.
Okay.
So the questions are going to be... Here's the first one, just to sort of softball it in for you.
Okay.
Did a character holding the phone or laptop ever just ruin it for you?
It didn't ruin it, but there was maybe one or two scenes where I was
contrived.
Like, you wouldn't...
Why are you holding the phone?
Why are you holding your laptop if you're that down. Scared? Like, I don't know.
A part of me thinks that they could have got away with it a bit. Not, of course, they got away with it. It is a wonderful film. I'm just trying to find flaws where there aren't any. But I think they could have got away with it even more smoothly. In the case of, I think her name is Emma in particular, the one that hides under the bed.
Yeah.
In her case in particular, I think they could have got away with it if they had shown her reflection holding the laptop.
Oh, like in a mirror.
But just holding it like a teddy bear, as in just to say that like abject horror has kicked in.
Yeah.
And these characters are holding these devices like they're safety blankets. They don't even care that the camera's on anymore.
Oh, well, that's really interesting actually, because I think that we don't need... The scene you suggest would have been a really good addition, but we don't need that because I think you can read that in it. Like that all of them are holding on to this connection.
It's like what you said earlier.
Horror, and this object that actually offers nothing in ways of protection or comfort, really.
These days we're all so connected to our technology that actually you might hold on to your laptop.
You might not even drop it when you're scared.
I remember one morning...
it might feel like a barrier or something.
I woke up on the south side of Glasgow and I didn't know where my phone was. No. I was looking for my phone and I saw it across the room. And I had a feeling like a phantom limb in my head.
You're like, why is my hand over there?
Genuinely, it felt that strange to me.
Yeah.
So,
I think that a way that you can overcome that is by like changing the cover frequently or something. And that's why I think it's so cool that they all have their like unique devices, or I assume they do.
One of my favorite little moments, like little touches in the film, was Caroline, smashy face.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that
was unreal.
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, Caroline's death is absolutely fantastic because...
Can you explain that Zoom thing, just how it works? Like, I don't know how to do that.
So earlier in the film, she shows all of her mates that she's got this animated background that's hilarious, where she's basically filmed herself pretending that, she's filmed herself very, very naturally walking into the room with her phone and looking through her drawers, so that it kind of looks like if you're talking to her, it would be very funny to see another version of her, like a clone version of herself, walk in behind her and start rummaging through her drawers. And it is very, very funny.
And like brushing her hair and stuff.
Yeah. Just being completely oblivious of the camera. But that being set up so perfectly is one of those... your man's gun, Chekhov's gun moments. You're like, as an audience member, you're thinking if this isn't your first rodeo, if this isn't your first horror film, you're thinking, what is that going to be used to amplify?
Oh no, it's my first rodeo. I didn't think that at the time.
Oh, you did. Go on.
I didn't. I just was like, that is so interesting, but I wasn't expecting to see it again. I thought it was just like setting up how, novel like Zoom is and how it's changed everyone's experience the past few months. They
did do something which is one of my favorite things for filmmakers to do. In Bruges is an incredible example of this, where the film almost becomes palindromic. Lindsay Ellis would call this setup and payoff. But the most you can strive for is a palindrome, where basically everything that happens at the beginning of the film also happens at the end of the film as well. So in this film you have this animated background, and then later in the film, Caroline's call is dropped very abruptly.
Yeah.
And the friends aren't sure where she's gone. But then it seems like everything goes back to normal as the empty room is then suddenly filled with her.
Walking
and
in.
The friends start calling for her, but think that her microphone must be off or her speakers must be off and that they simply just can't hear her. Then, piercing through this video...
Well, they see her do the same motions as before, and they start to... So actually, it doesn't immediately happen. You start to get the dread of, oh no, that's not her.
That's the video. And it's brilliant. And then suddenly her messages start to appear, and they're these garbled words. And for a minute, I thought that a demon was using her keyboard and just being a troll, or that they spoke in some kind of code language or something. Like, my brain started going all over the place. But then her face pierces through this pre-recorded background, and you see that she's getting her face slammed off the desk or the laptop itself several times. It was a genius
and she's
moment.
Like, help me, kind of. But you can still see the doppelganger, her also, like... Yeah. Shimmering through.
I actually don't know how they... I could sort of do it myself in After Effects or something, but I don't know specifically how they did it as well as they did it. Just getting those overlapping
screens,
bits of footage to blur through one another there. Really, really excellently done. But yeah, I think, going back to this idea of, would it ever ruin it? If I can imagine real cynics of this film saying you wouldn't bring your phone with you. But I think what this film is actually speaking towards is that these days we are our phones. Not that that's all we are, but they've just become an extension of us.
But also there's something in the idea of, like, both with the filter picking up on the thing and also her, like, default, like, decoy background of her walking around, these things actually being masks for something horrible behind them. Like, so the idea, like, because that was concealing what was happening to her. So the idea that you're like,
question that I wanted to ask you. Yes,
engagement with it can be hiding something behind it.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you, and I've already mentioned the panopticon, but I did it as a bit of a joke. So in a more serious vein, then, does this film say something about the nature of constant surveillance or constant performance in the 21st century?
Yes, and I'm just going to, like, clink my margarita mix because rather than try avoid, like, drinking my iced drink, I want it to be part of the podcast.
Oh, okay, because you're trying to personalize this. This is part of our personal brand.
This is part of my brand, but also, like, I can't be bothered hiding it, so, yeah. So, does it say something about performance and social media era?
Well, I suppose what I'm more thinking about is this idea of surveillance capitalism by Shoshana Bushoff. Very, very interesting book. But more of just a concept, very broadly, of there just being ambient
surveillance,
and that we're always being viewed and that we're always being performed, and that the very act of watching is the basis of our economy these days. The basis of our reality.
There's something in the fact that this behavior during the seance over a private Zoom, like you have to be in a waiting room to then enter it, so it's a private, like, online space.
Although Zoom famous for their data leaks.
So I think that it troubles the idea of a private online space, because what happens is Gemma's mockery of it invites a demon in, and basically it's like there's a code of rules, but they didn't have the full code of rules from Seylan. They didn't know that there's no making fun because you could invite something in. So basically the lack of control in a public, in a online private community that you think you have control in, there's something in that. Like the fact that there is a higher order of rules that you've maybe not read that will bite you on the ass.
Yeah.
So I guess just like the sort of
like an unwritten. So you're talking about kind of like an unwritten code of
an unwritten code, but also like unannounced algorithms that can ultimately shape your fate, like that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're saying, so basically the idea of there being practices within a seance then are a metaphor, in a sense, for the algorithms that shape our actions and shape our identities
and ultimately
and our
lack of awareness of that.
Yes.
Because Gemma, all of them are completely unaware that what Gemma does is fatal for all of them, because they don't know this hidden rule, in a sense, this like hidden algorithm for what they're taking part in.
Yes. So what's that like if we were just to sort of model that onto Twitter or something, I suppose there are things that you shouldn't do on Twitter because, when you do them, I guess it's, if you were on Twitter to start retweeting alt-right tweets because it's a bit of a laugh, it can actually have a huge impact on your life.
Well, that's what happens. Yeah. So her sense of humor,
oh my God,
is misconstrued and used,
ends up being fatal
as a mask for something else. So
is this film actually about how you should
not
only
troll?
Ever don't be a troll.
Don't be a troll to make your friends laugh. I don't know.
Oh wow.
But like
recently,
but also your information is out there. You're vulnerable. So their addresses, their homes, so whatever it is they're taking part in is in an online space, but in their physical home, they're all killed. So also the blurring of those spaces in terms of your safety, like it's not okay to say, oh, this Zoom seance is whack, I'm going to log off and go to bed. It is in the home too.
I think
so
that's
there's
what
something
you've been getting at this whole conversation.
I know, I'm trying to tease it all out.
What you're saying is that the real power of this film, and the way that, to answer our sort of broader overarching question, how has this film succeeded in making 21st century technology frightening, is that what it does is it materializes technology. It shows you that a Zoom call is not just, are you really chewing ice right now? That's going too far.
I started doing it and then I saw your face and I was like,
no
dog.
We have to materialize the digital right now, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's going too far.
I've invited a demon with my rudeness.
Me. No,
it materializes the digital. Yeah,
absolutely. So you can feel like a Zoom call or a Twitter account or a podcast is something that is immaterial, but actually it's something that has is irremovable from your life. It is something that is absolutely entangled and entwined with the reality of who you are.
Yeah.
So just being on a Zoom call can end your life, I guess, is the message of this film.
There's no separation.
I think this is something that you and I have been feeling is missing in techno horrors of the 21st century. Like that film that we saw with the comedian in it, the big fat Tom Segura, who worked in it. He's not the main character, but he's the only guy I knew in it. He was working in a mobile phone shop, and at one point they've got this app on their phone and it counts down. Was it just called Countdown?
Countdown,
I think it was called Countdown.
That was a demon inside an app, right?
Yes. But it almost got there with the message.
Yeah. But the thing with this film that's so cool is that like they access something primordial in a way that it has always been accessed. It's just that technology facilitates that a bit.
Yes.
It's not that it is literally inside Zoom, like the demon.
They're not trying to make Zoom scary.
They're not trying to say that Zoom is scary.
Right.
I suppose they're trying to say
what Zoom does is actually it allows
the stupidity of people is scary.
Oh yeah. But I have a slightly different reading on it though, which would be that
the inauthenticity of people is scary.
Yes, no, that definitely as well. But just before I forget, I think what I was going to try and say was that what it is trying to say is that technology can make something that's already frightening more frightening.
Way more frightening.
Which is
yes.
what we've kind of been missing.
It's an amplifier.
It's what the Ring. It's what the Ring managed to do with VHS tapes.
Absolutely.
And it did it by making the pre-existing parts of VHS tapes all scary. What am I trying to say? It did it by making the bits of VHS tapes that were already a bit weird and uncanny, like the static that would come from the end of a VHS tape.
It's like whatever philosopher says always already.
Loads of them.
Is it
Well, Karen says it. Karen Barrett.
Oh, it's Karen, but I'm thinking of the
Whitehead, Alfred
Merleau-Ponty or something.
Oh, yeah,
he says like we're always already entwined or something. Like the technology we're using,
Heidegger, I think, also
that's novel to
some
us,
translations.
I guess, is always already terrifying, but we just don't know. We only know ambiently or subconsciously what's scary about it, I guess.
Yes.
And then something like this draws out that it, the kind of fears.
It's interesting, actually. What you've got me thinking about more with this now is German media theory and technocultural practices, which is I think very, very interesting, because I think that is really where they're managing to get the horror out of here. Is they're almost using the same techniques as observational comedy in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, isn't it funny when you forget to take off the filter, and yet they're managing to twist that somehow into being terrifying.
And what do you think about like the demon itself and the fact that it's this like guy that killed himself? That's the like identity that it's taken.
I did like the demon because they succeeded in doing lesson number 1 of horror. They didn't show you the demon. That you got these glimpses of it, which was brilliant. And this is how they succeeded in making the demon truly terrifying, was that, they constantly played on everyone's most hated element of using Zoom, which is that the feckin' thing keeps dropping out.
Yes.
Unless, as previously mentioned, you use a feckin' Ethernet cable. Could people please start plugging their bloody computers into the Ethernet?
Well, I feel like that woman that's hosting a seance on Zoom, Seylan, she should have had an Ethernet cable. Are you
Plug
joking?
your bloody machine in, for God's sake. And it's not, that actually really bothers me. How have we gone from everybody having their computers plugged in when it was the 90s? And because it's the people from the 90s that aren't doing this, So from people going from having the dial-up cable jammed in the back of their machines to suddenly having broadband, and then they think somehow it's magic. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my own wee vent over. Also,
like, there's maybe something in like the things that people will do when they're bored being scary. Like I'm always like coming into contact with these like articles talking about how we never get time to be bored and it's so good for you and it's so good for creativity. But then these people are, this unique situation everyone's in 2020 is this like forced boredom.
Right.
So it's boredom without a choice to go and be bored and be creative. It's just this eternal boredom, which is, driven people to decide to hold a seance. And that kind of like eternal boredom also being like
see, I don't know. For me, all of the things that they're doing are fine within the context of the film. It really
no, I
is
think
the
they're
Zoom
fine
thing
too.
It is the Zoom thing that makes it frightening, and that is such a rare thing that they've managed to pull off in this film, to make the technology really the crux of the horror. Is brilliant.
Sure, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is like without any purpose or place to be, they have this.
Yeah. They try to make this thing for themselves. Yeah, no, I totally get that. But there was one more question that I wanted to get into, and I think it's one that you'll enjoy. And it's kind of tied in with the idea of sympathy for the characters, because I think I quite like horror films where, look, in this film everyone dies and it's brilliant. But I quite like horror films where almost everyone or everyone dies. And it becomes quite cathartic just to sort of see the characters get picked off one by one. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, until the end, you're kind of going, hooray! Like, Leatherface rules,
Yeah.
But tied in with that idea, all of the characters are, we could say European apart from Hayley, but the majority of the characters are British apart from Hayley. And I was wondering, just, we discussed British colonialism last week. Like, is this film succeeding in, like, drawing up tensions between British and American people, or, like, as a Scottish and a Northern Irish viewer viewing the film, hearing those London accents, like, I kind of wanted them to, meet their demise. Only in a fun way. But, like,
I suppose, like, wealth definitely enters the picture if we think about Timmy, whatever, the friend of theirs that joins the call last and then leaves. He's sort of like
Teddy and Jenny,
dated up and is staying in this big, like, mansion, cottage core house with the pool. So, like, at the very start, we are thinking about money, thinking about resources, and how all lockdowns aren't equal. Some people have got a cocktail in hand at the pool. Some are staying in their childhood bedroom with their dad downstairs. Yes. So I'm not really sure what to say about, like, the British American thing, but in terms of
what about that moment in the film? Remember, we really liked it where the American is goading them on. The American says, we have to keep going with this, with that sort of typical American horror film tone of, we need to keep going, or whatever it is she says, only for one of the British characters to immediately say,
"No, you psycho," or like
she just goes, no. Like, of course we're not going to keep going with this. That's insane. So that tension I thought worked really well. Yeah. Having the kind of more common sense, dry, droll British characters clashing against a more American sensibility. Yeah.
I think that worked really well. I think all the characters were really well written, like, superbly performed. But I don't know if I have anything deeper to say about it other than it was just amusing to see.
Something does niggle me about Hayley being American. Not that I think it was a really clever choice, but I think there's something deep there that I just haven't quite managed to... Yeah, well,
she was the one that set the whole thing up.
Yes.
So I guess you could maybe a push be like, that's America dragging Britain into the shit. Yeah. Like, but Britain is also willingly following, even though it's like, it's a bad idea. Chlorinated chicken. Just send it over. Our economy's dead. Like I don't know. Britain being that. Like aware that it's a bad idea to be Americanized, but at the same time still
having really no other options.
Going along with America because that's its only mate.
I think.
I don't know.
Britain's only mate. And then, a final question that I have. Well, I don't know. I think one thing I would say before I ask this final question is that what has come up in my mind with this discussion with you is that there's a lot more to be said.
We have hardly said anything.
I think we're only scratching the surface. I wanted to talk about
It Follows and how, like, I haven't felt this exhilarated by a film since It Follows.
God, It Follows is wonderful.
And I think that's because of how it's filmed. Like, I don't think that it's...
So for you, this is a great piece of filmmaking because of the novelty of it.
Yeah, and I don't find it cringe, and I think there's so many ways it could have been cringe.
Well, that's my final question.
Is it cringe?
Is this going to age well?
Yeah, I think so. I actually think so because The Ring's aged well. You know, we don't watch VHS anymore, but that's still a terrifying piece of cinema. I think that the technology is like an element, but
I suppose the bit about it is that so I think it will age well because I think as soon as we introduce Wi-Fi 6, which I don't think anybody's going to know about what I'm talking about.
But when we don't have dropout.
There won't be dropouts, either from Wi-Fi 6 or from 5G. But we're going to have much fewer dropouts and calls. But I think the thing is that's actually going to make the film age really, really well. Because just like what you're saying with the VHS and the Ring, when kids watch this in the future, they're going to be going, oh my God, did did calls used to do that?
Yeah.
That's so weird. One of the really good bits is at the beginning of the film when Gemma and Hayley are talking, and Hayley talks and does not care that her signal is bullshit.
Just keeps talking and walking about.
In and out and walking around. And I'll be honest, I have never in my life had a Zoom call with a very self-assured person. I was going to say had a Zoom call with a Londoner, but I don't know.
Wait,
I think
Hayley's
it's more
the American though.
No,
Do you
but
mean Gemma?
Gemma's the one who's talking
Yeah.
very confidently. Sorry if I messed up the names there. You know, I think there's a self-assuredness to her character that to me is something that I have really only seen in London. It's the only place I've been in the world with self-confidence. There's a dire shortage of self-confidence in and around Belfast. We have far more sheep, fewer self-confidence. I can't even say it.
Nobody's self-conscious.
Well, who knows? We're sheep confident. But you know, the confidence to just keep bowling on with that phone call,
Yes.
even though it's chopping in and out. To me, that was terrifying. That was giving me anxiety because I was like, would you just wait for it to buffer, please? Because I hate this choppy audio. I actually really empathized with Hayley in that moment because when Gemma then goes inside and gets the feedback loop going between her phone, her laptop, and Hayley, and she's laughing about it and thinks it's really, really funny.
And Hayley's like, make it stop.
I was like, oh my God, make it stop. Like, this feedback loop is only going to get louder until it eventually crashes your audio driver. Like, you need to turn this off right now. And then you need to sell your phone because you don't deserve technology.
You know what? Like, I think that there's definitely something in like the fear of how distracted we are.
Right.
Just the way you're talking about the fact that she's walking down the street talking and has terrible connection, and it's then getting her keys out and opening the door and then continues into her laptop. Like, you know, it's all done with a very like scattered attention. And that's something that with that scattered attention, there's not depth of attention in one thing. They're in the Zoom call, but they're also being told to be aware of their environment, look out for signs by Seylan. So just the fracturing of attention is terrifying because, like you said, they're also focused on holding on to their laptop or phone or whatever at the same time as protecting themselves. I don't think that's
themselves. A theme that's leaving us anytime soon. I think that'll continue to age
not.
well.
Exactly.
That'll make this a bit timeless.
And it's not to say that
my concern is this.
Yeah.
I think the technology part is going to age really, really well. But one of the things that is absolutely crucial to this film is COVID-19.
Yeah.
So are people going to understand in the future that there was this moment in time where human beings only socialized through voice over IP, you know?
And when you say in the future, are you talking like...
post-vaccine, if it happens.
Yes, I thought you meant like 500 years from now. I mean, yeah, they're gonna...
Oh, you think there's gonna be humans in 500 years?
Will the aliens understand this film? I absolutely think people are gonna understand. I think that it's nonsense that there's going to be a vaccine in like 6 months or whatever.
So I think this film, whether or not this film ages well, depends on
be relevant for a couple of years at least.
Yeah,
like precisely relevant. And what that in that case, that's what any film can do.
Yeah,
because other films have technology in them.
Yeah,
so.
I think what you were saying about the film not feeling cringe was really important. Like,
it didn't feel cringe.
I think you're right. It didn't feel cringe. I want it to feel cringe. I want to be above this film, but I'm not sure I am.
I was so excited to watch a cringy film, and it scared the bejesus out of me and really impressed me. I didn't want to like it. I really like it.
Very interesting as well.
I am haunted.
Very interesting that this is one of Shudder's first, this is Shudder are not that comfortable yet financing films. They've done some wonderful films. I think Blood Machines was a Shudder financed film, which we need to talk about as well. But
it's just there's really so much mediocre stuff out there.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see something that isn't that. I'm not saying that it's, you know,
a masterpiece.
a masterpiece.
But it might be.
But it's not mediocre. Like, and there was something else I wanted to say.
I'm not the best.
Oh.
I'm not the worst either.
I ain't saying that I'm the best, but I ain't the worst.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is saying it's the best for now, at least.
Excellent. All right, so we were going to talk about Ghostwatch this week. That's what we had said in code, kind of, at the end of the last episode. But unfortunately, the person that was going to do that with us was sick. So we might do Ghostwatch next week. But we might do something else instead. I think we should do Twilight next week. Go give it a throwback and talk about Twilight.
Just have a laugh at how awful it is.
And really, maybe just do like a vampire special or something. I don't know.
Cool,
Talk about Bram
cool,
Stoker
cool.
or something. If anybody,
we could do Bram Stoker versus Twilight, like a
love it. Talk
a
about
fight to the death of the two.
Actually, I demand Anne Rice versus Twilight. Have you not seen? You don't even know who Lestat is. Have you not seen
No.
Interview with a Vampire?
Oh no, I really want to see it though.
So good. Okay, next week.
Okay, I'm
going to
get my cringe.
So good. Look, if anybody is listening, thank you so much for making it this far. It really does, it means a lot to me. Doesn't mean anything to Heather. But we're going to keep doing these podcasts. We've had some great uptake on Twitter and other places, and we're going to keep expanding, getting to more platforms as we go. We're on YouTube now and also on iTunes, but I've been told that really the place to be is Spotify, so we're going to keep trying to grow and expand. And
I hate Spotify.
we hate Spotify. There's Heather with her usual mark of positivity. But for everybody who is listening, thank you so much, and hopefully you'll tune in next week as well. Tune in. How old am I?
I know. Hopefully you'll asynchronously listen to our content.
On your Elon Musk neural implant. Have a nice week. Bye.
Bye.